Hi, this is Magic on Tap. I'm Mikey and I've got a deck tech for you today, and today we're going to be looking at Tribal Druids in Modern. Okay, so let's jump right into it. First off, we're going to look at three of the cards that are really key to ramping this deck, and in a very unconventional way. So we're going to be taking a look at Arbor Elf. So 1-drop green, and it has the ability tap to untap target forest. Next up we have Utopia Sprawl. So 1-drop green. It's an enchantment aura. It has the abilities enchant forest. As Utopia Sprawl comes into play, you choose a colour, and whenever the enchanted forest is tapped for mana, its controller adds 1 mana of the chosen colour to his or her mana pool. And finally we have Voyaging Satyr. It's a 2-drop creature. It's 1 generic and 1 green, and it has the ability tap to untap a target land. And what we're looking to play, effectively on turn 1 we want to be playing an Arbor Elf, and on turn 2 we're going to be playing our Utopia Sprawl. This gives us access to 4 mana on turn 2, which is really amazing. So what we do, first off, we play the forest that we've already got in play. We tap that to play Utopia Sprawl and attach it to the forest that we've tapped to play it. And then we tap Arbor Elf because it's not summoning sick anymore, and we can untap that land. And then we can play either another land and play a 3-drop creature, or we can play a 2-drop creature like our Voyaging Sata and a second Utopia Sprawl. It's really up to you how you do this. It all depends on what you've drawn. But we've got access to at least 4 mana on turn 2. And then as we go into turn 3, you can have up to a maximum of 9 mana available, which is where we really start to ramp out with this deck. Moving on to the 2-drop creatures, we're going to be playing 4 copies of Sylvan Advocate. It's a 2-drop creature. It's 1 generic and 1 green. It has the ability Vigilance, and as long as you control 6 or more lands, Sylvan Advocate and land creatures you control get +2/+2. Now we're not massively interested in the second ability. We're really interested in that 2/3 power and toughness that Sylvan Advocate has, and its Vigilance, because what it allows us to do is it allows us to remain aggressive in the early game while defending at the same time. And our third 2-drop creature is Voice of Resurgence. It's a green-white creature, and it has the ability, whenever an opponent casts a spell during your turn or when Voice of Resurgence dies, we get to put a green and white elemental creature token onto the battlefield with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. What we're looking to do with Voice of Resurgence effectively is stop our opponent from being able to play how they would like to play. It stops them from being able to cast spells in our turn. It also stops them from being too aggressive in case we chump block with the Voice of Resurgence and get that token off of it. And that leads me to what our effective plan for this deck is. Now we have one objective really, which is to bring out 1 big creature very early on. However, the second objective is to bring out as many creatures as possible with the available mana that we've generated. Moving on to our 3-drop creatures, we're going to be also playing a full playset again of Wayfaring Temple. It's the only 3-drop creature we're going to be playing, and this is effectively our way of getting something similar to what we would get out of our Voice of Resurgence, but with a little added extra bonus. So Wayfaring Temple is a 3-drop creature, 1 generic, 1 green and 1 white, and it reads, Wayfaring Temple's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control, and when Wayfaring Temple deals combat damage to a player, we populate. And populate is to put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of a creature token you control. So we're looking to utilize Voice of Resurgence in the early game so we can start bringing out some tokens to duplicate effectively with Wayfaring Temple. We're not playing any 4-drop creatures apart from the sideboard, but we are playing 1 5-drop creature, and we're playing 2 copies of Gilt-Leaf Archdruid. And this is one of the main reasons this is a tribal deck, because it's the only way we're going to be utilizing our Druids for more than just the insane amount of mana that they can produce very early on in the game. Gilt-Leaf Archdruid is 3 generic and 2 green, and whenever you play a Druid spell you may draw a card. So the main reason for playing this card in this deck is to give us some card advantage, and also it acts as one of our win conditions. So in flooding the field with as many Druids as we can, the second ability on Gilt-Leaf Archdruid becomes very playable very quickly, especially in turn 3 or 4, where we can tap 7 untapped Druids that we control, and we can gain control of all the lands target player controls. So immediately we put ourselves in a position where we're forcing our opponent to concede. And providing we can play as many Druid spells as possible, we're going to be drawing into our main win condition, which we'll talk about right now. So our final creature in the deck we'll be playing is an Elesh Norn. So it's a 7-drop creature. There's really nothing in this deck when you play a 7-drop creature which you can get out on turn 3. It has the abilities Vigilance, and other creatures you control get +2/+2, and creatures your opponent control get -2/-2. So hopefully when we bring this out on turn 3, anything they've played up until that point is immediately crushed, and anything they're hoping to play with 2 mana or less, if they're playing a lot of smaller creatures, is just going to be stopped immediately until they can deal with Elesh Norn. And it's not always feasible to be able to deal with an Elesh Norn straight away. Can be very difficult for our opponents. So that is one way that we're going to be winning. And with everything we've brought out, at least on the next turn, turn 4, we're going to be completely swinging in. Moving on, now we've finished talking about the creatures in the deck. We're going to be talking about the non-creature spells in the deck. We're playing one Planeswalker in this deck. We're going to be playing a Elspeth Knight-Errant, and it has 3 abilities. It has 2+ abilities. The first ability is puts a 1/1 white soldier creature token into play. Secondly, the ability target creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying until the end of the turn. This kind of card in general acts as more of a support for getting past opponents' defenses as well as creating more creatures. This card really becomes a new target for them to deal with, because if we can get her ult off, which is for the rest of the game artifacts, creatures, enchantments and lands you control are indestructible, that's really going to stop them in their tracks. So they've got a few big pieces to deal with. Even after they've dealt with some of the smaller pieces, they're going to be struggling to get rid of these guys. Really what we're doing with Elspeth is we're using her as a distraction for Elesh Norn if we've not managed to get her out beforehand. But moving on, we've already seen one of the other non-creature spells, which is Utopia Sprawl. So we've only got 2 more to show you here. So we're going to be playing 2 copies of Dromoka's Command, and it kind of acts like a Swiss Army knife in the deck, because we're not playing too many spells. We're playing a heavy amount of creatures, so I wanted to utilize a spell that can give us more options later on in the game. Moving on now to another card that's quite versatile in its own right, Mercy Killing. It's 2 generic and 1 green and white hybrid mana. And it's an instant. It reads, target creature's controller sacrifices it and then puts X 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature tokens into play, where X is that creature's power. Now we're playing 3 copies of this, and it's super versatile. It can take out indestructible creatures. So a simple fact of the matter is, if we're playing against a creature that is indestructible that's causing a lot of aggro for us, we can target it, make its opponent sacrifice it. They get a load of green 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature tokens. However, that's nothing in comparison to a creature that is going to be causing you a lot of grief later on in the game once it's hit the field. So it can take out some indestructible creatures. It can also take out some flyers. If we're struggling to get over our opponent with Elspeth's second ability, we can just take away a flyer. They get loads of ground creatures, but we're then straight away flying over, hitting for damage. And we can even target our own creatures, which are being spot removed, and get some more value out of those creatures before they're gone. And finally, we can also just target our own big creatures just to make our Wayfaring Temples bigger, or even the tokens that we get from Voice of Resurgence. Let's take a quick look at the land base and the sideboard here. The only other card I'm going to mention is a new card from Kaladesh called Nature's Way. Does some really interesting things. Let me just bring it up here. So it's a 2-drop card, 1 generic and 1 green, and target creature you control gains Vigilance and Trample until the end of the turn. And it also deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. That is amazing. Just does so much for 2 mana. I'll be very happy to swap this out for Dromoka's Command. It does something that we really want to do in the deck, but I just feel that Dromoka's Command deserves a place in the main because it does so much more for the deck. That wraps up our video for today. So if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, then please like and subscribe, especially if you don't want to miss out on more deck techs and games where we really go through the mechanics of the decks that we build right here on this channel. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you all next time, making sure you've always got magic on tap.